Hey, it's Michael Angelo Caruso. I'm here today to talk a little bit about time and how to make better use of time. Some people say these tips would be about saving time. I'm not sure that's mathematically the best way to describe it because nobody really has more time than anyone else. Hiram Smith made me laugh one time. He was the founder of the Franklin Planner Company, or one of the top guys for a while, and got a chance to meet him one time. And he said one of the funniest questions he ever asked, or one of the funniest things he ever heard from somebody, is the guy said, "I wish I lived 1,000 years ago when people had more time." Of course, they had the same amount of time then. Anybody who accomplishes a lot this year and gets all kinds of awards and kudos and recognition for how they spent their time, they have the same amount of time as you have. And so I think we'd all like to get more from our time, and it's curious why we don't apply ourselves more to this, because we could all have much more productive lives and enjoy ourselves more if we had the discipline to actually put these techniques into play. So I wanted to share a few tips with you today about how you can have more time, save more time, make time, be more productive with your time. And they come from the Work Hacks book that I've published recently. You can see I'm sharing a bit of the information in various places. And the title of this program, which happens to be on page 108 of the book, is called Time Hacks. And this is called a printer spread, everybody. Printers call this a perfect bound book based on the dimensions and the fact that the spine is glued. And this is a printing term called printer spread, which means these 5 tips can be put on an 8.5 by 11 copy machine, right? And then you can make copies of it and use it as placemats at meetings and that sort of thing. You can do that with any printer spread within this book, because every printer spread has a different topic. And so the one I want to share with you today is called Time Hacks. And so there are 5 tips, and I'm going to give them to you fairly quickly, so you want to write them down. And the first tip is that the first hour of the day sets the tone of the day. Now, I didn't invent this concept, and there have been a lot of people who have talked about it. The great Brian Tracy calls the first hour of the day the barometer of the day, right? He calls it the golden hour. I call it the power hour. Other people have called it different things. But that first 60 minutes of the day sets the tone. And you know this because if you've ever set the snooze alarm a few extra times on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning in bed, you usually find that that's not the most productive morning of your week, right? And so when you get right out of bed and you almost step right into your clothes, because you don't have to worry about which clothes you're wearing that day, and you've got a few things you need to do before you get out the door, and you're leaving at exactly a certain time, you know, that puts a certain kind of tone to the day. And that's why the first hour of the day is so important. And you get even more out of that hour when you've scheduled increments of that 60 minutes for certain things. For example, I like to write in the first 60 minutes of the day. Now, this happens to be what I do for a living. But if you don't write for a living, you could still find excuses and reasons to write, say journaling, for example, clearing your thoughts, getting clarity on a project or something that you're working on. Not a bad way at all to start the day, because it fires you up, man, and gets you going. I drink quite a bit of water in the morning. I often would drink an entire glass of water first thing in the morning, the very first few minutes, because water, being a good lubricant for the system, is going to serve me well in the rest of the day, right? It sets the tone. And so I never skip breakfast. Same thing, right? Always happens if not in the first hour, fairly soon in the day. Exercise for me in the first hour of the day. And it's all scheduled out. And some of you are thinking, well, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be that militant about my own life. And that's your choice. You don't have to be. I don't think of it as militant. I just think of it as being organized or structured or productive, right? These are the terms I apply to it. So the first tip is that you use the first hour of the day to set the pace for the day. Second technique comes from the Stephen Covey people. In fact, Stephen Covey's great books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, published decades ago now. And my favorite of the 7 habits is to do the most important task first. Covey called it first things first. And so in my case, I've been pretty lucky, some might say. I've weighed the same amount, about 167 pounds, my entire adult life. 67, 65. It varies a couple pounds, but nothing serious. And some would say I'm very lucky or I've got good DNA or whatever. But the truth is I exercise every single day. I mean, I hardly ever miss. Now, I'm not a workout king, right? I don't pound it, but I do some physical exercise every day, and it seems to help. And I do that task early in the day. I often exercised late at night when I was a young man, but now I don't do that. And then my set time is in the first hour. I find if I don't do something in the first hour, it gets by me. So that's the second tip for managing time. Do most important tasks first. The third tip for time hacks is to carry learning resources with you. Like carry stuff with you. Now, this didn't used to be an issue before this was invented, because now you're carrying a computer with you. You can answer email. You can do all kinds. You can watch video. You can do all kinds of things that you didn't used to be able to do on a cell phone. Well, when I say carry learning resources with you, I'm talking about self-development, personal development. Well, most people watch entertainment videos, right? So you're not going to get the same juice from a cat video that you get from a video on how to manage time, right? For example. The other thing is, if you have a calendar or even in your phone notes, let's talk about your contact list. If in your contact list you type keywords about that person in the notes section, you can type in the keyword and in your contact list, and everybody that shares that keyword will come up in your contact list. And this is important because sometimes you won't be able to remember a person's name, but you remember he's a computer technician. In this case, you'd have to type both computer technician, right? But let's say you needed a photographer. What is that guy's name? What is that photographer's name? If you've typed photographer in the notes section, if you just type photographer, or in this case, just photo into the search bar of the contact icon, everybody that's been tagged a photographer will come up in your phone. That's pretty cool. And that saved me tons of time through the years. So it's a great tip, is to use the word searchable mechanism in your contact list as a way to save time. Number 4 is to pre-call your allotted time. So a lot of times I find that people are wasting my time. And the reason they waste my time is it's not on purpose. They talk at a slower rate, or they think I don't get it. Imagine, I get a lot of questions about how to sharpen presentation skills, right? I've been doing it for many, many years. And so there's hardly a question I haven't heard. I almost know the question before you finished asking me, right? So not only do people call me and they say, well, let me tell you the question, but let me tell you specifically why this is an issue for me. And if I've watched them speak or I've been listening for any amount of time, I often know plenty about their delivery. And it's not that I feel the need to interrupt. It's just that the more information they give me is not necessarily helping me understand their situation any better. So at some point, I may say, listen, you've been talking now for about 4 minutes, and I think I understand. And besides, you called me for help. We only have 15 minutes on the call. And if I let you go, you're liable to talk for 8 more minutes. And then where will we be, right? So I find that when people are not spending our mutual time wisely, I use a technique called the pre-call. I kind of hinted at it just now, is that if you call me for help and I want to help you, I might say to you something like, listen, I've got about 15 minutes. Does that suit you right now? Or would you like to postpone this for another time? And you might say, well, yeah, let's get started right now. That's great, 15 minutes. And now you know you have 15 minutes with me. You're less likely to talk for 8 or 10 minutes, right? Explaining the situation. By the way, what kind of conversation is that anyway, if you called me to talk and you're the only one talking? If you called me for advice and you're the only one talking, are you ever going to get what you called me for? And so pre-calling helps establish boundaries in the conversation so people understand exactly how much time do we have here to talk, right? And this is important in the days of the cell phone age, because people are being interrupted all the time. You ever have people call you from their car, but you don't know they're in their car? And they ask you a question and you're halfway through the explanation and they say, hey, I just got to my destination, I have to go. And you're like, what? What? I thought you called me for an explanation. And let me finish now, right? And so we can fix all this by this technique, and it's called the pre-call. I'll run all these down for you in just a second. So the first time hack I'm sharing with you is that the first hour of the day sets the tone. The second is you want to do the most important tasks first. Don't put it off. Don't do the cherry picking of all the easy stuff. Check, 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 check. Okay, now I've had my second cup of coffee. I'll do the important thing. No, start with the most important thing. Number three, carry the learning resources, carry the tools that you need, and use them in a way that allow you to get the job done. This is the idea of using keywords in the contact list, in your contacts, in the notes section. I'm talking now about the iPhone. I'm sure Android has a notes section in the contact field, a contact field as well. The fourth is to pre-call your allotted time with the person. Listen, thanks very much for calling. I'd love to talk with you. I've got about a half an hour right now. Is that good enough for us to get started with this conversation? We can always call each other back another time. Yes, okay, good, 30 minutes. Let's spend the first 10 minutes doing this, the second 10 minutes doing this. Does this sound good to you? Right, so now we have a plan. It's pretty good. And then the fifth cool idea, the fifth time hack from the Work Hacks book is this idea of making an appointment with yourself so that you make sure you're not interrupted, right? We do this all the time when we make appointments with others. We block out an hour of time with that other person in the calendar. How often do we actually go to our own calendar and block out an hour and we get specific about what we're going to do with ourselves in that hour? You know, how are we going to spend that time? And then when you set a little reminder for the thing, like you do with everybody else, 15 minutes before it happens, the alarm goes off. Oh yeah, in 15 minutes, I have a meeting with myself. We're going to talk about such and such. And that's how it can work for you. And these are, I think, 5 terrific time hacks. I've been using all of them for a long, long time. I still use them. And they're in the Work Hacks book, over 300 cool ideas to speed career success. And you can get the book, if you care to, at michaelangelocaruso.com. Just go to the store and type in Work Hacks and you can pick her up. Thanks very much for being with me on the call. And I hope you save some time in the coming week. Talk to you soon.